My name's Daniel, and 2 years ago I spent a night locked inside a cemetery by accident. What happened between midnight and dawn made me question everything I thought I knew about death. I'm 28, was working as a groundskeeper at Brookwood Cemetery in Surrey. It's one of the largest cemeteries in the UK, over 500 acres. On a Friday evening in October, I was finishing some maintenance work on the far side of the grounds when I realized the gates had been locked. It was past 6 p.m., and I'd lost track of time. I called my supervisor. No answer. Called the main office. Closed for the weekend. My phone was at 12% battery with barely any signal. I wasn't too worried initially. It was annoying, but I could wait until morning when staff would arrive to open the gates. I'd spent plenty of time in cemeteries during the day. How different could night be? I found a maintenance shed near the center of the grounds, unlocked it with my key, and settled in. It had a chair, some tools, a small heater. I'd be uncomfortable but fine until morning. Around 11 p.m., I heard voices outside. Multiple people talking, moving through the cemetery. That was odd. The gates were locked. How had anyone else got in? I opened the shed door and looked out. Saw torches moving in the darkness, maybe 5 or 6 of them scattered across the cemetery. People walking between the graves. "Hello?" I called out. "The cemetery's closed. You shouldn't be here." The voices stopped. The torches went out. Complete silence. I grabbed my own torch and walked toward where I'd seen the lights. Found nothing. No one there. No footprints in the dewy grass, even though I'd clearly seen people walking there moments before. I went back to the shed, feeling uneasy. Probably just kids who'd climbed the fence, ran off when they heard me. At midnight exactly, I heard it. Church bells. Loud, clear ringing 12 times. But there's no church in Brookwood Cemetery. The chapel was demolished in the 1970s. There are no bells. Yet I heard them. 12 clear chimes echoing across the grounds. Then the voices started again. Not talking this time. Singing. A hymn, old-fashioned. Dozens of voices singing together. Coming from the direction of where the chapel used to be. I stayed in the shed, door locked, heart pounding. This wasn't kids messing about. This was something else. The singing continued for maybe 10 minutes, then stopped abruptly. Silence again. At 1 a.m. I heard footsteps, right outside the shed, walking back and forth, slow and deliberate. I could hear them clearly on the gravel path. I shone my torch through the window. Nothing there. But the footsteps continued. Right outside where I could see there was nothing. This went on for an hour. Footsteps circling the shed while I sat inside, frozen with fear, seeing absolutely nothing that could be making the sounds. At 2 a.m., it stopped. Everything went silent. Too silent. Then I heard my name. Daniel. A woman's voice, soft, coming from right outside the door. "Daniel, let me in." I didn't recognize the voice, didn't respond. "Daniel, please, it's cold out here, let me in." My hand was shaking as I held the torch. I didn't say anything. "Daniel, I know you're in there. I can hear you breathing." That's when I noticed something. The voice wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from inside the shed behind me. I spun around, torch beam sweeping the small space. Nothing there. Just me and the tools and the chair. "You shouldn't be here," the voice whispered, now right next to my ear. "This is our time. The hours between midnight and dawn belong to us." I ran, burst out of the shed and sprinted toward the main gates. I didn't care about the fence. I'd climb over it, cut myself on the spikes if I had to. I just needed to get out. As I ran, I saw them. Figures standing among the graves. Dozens of them, not moving, just standing there, watching me run past. Some looked solid, real. Others were translucent, barely there. All silent, all watching. I reached the main gates and climbed. The iron fence was 8 feet high with spikes on top. I didn't care. Hauled myself up, tore my jacket on the spikes, dropped down on the other side onto the road. I ran a mile down the road to a 24-hour petrol station, gasping for breath, hands bleeding from the fence. The attendant took one look at me and called the police. I told them everything. They drove me back to the cemetery. By then it was 4 a.m. The gates were open. My supervisor was there, worried sick. Said he'd got my voicemail and came as soon as he could. Had been looking for me for an hour. The gates were locked when I arrived, he said. No sign of you. I've been searching everywhere. I climbed the fence, I told him. Around 2:30 a.m. there were people inside, lots of people. He looked at me strangely. Daniel, I've been here since 3 a.m. There's no one inside, just you and me. We went to the shed. Everything was exactly as I'd left it. But on the chair where I'd been sitting was something that made my blood run cold. A single flower, fresh. A white lily. The type of flower you leave on graves. I quit that job the next day, didn't even go back for my final paycheck, just couldn't. My supervisor called me a week later, said they'd checked the CCTV from that night. The cameras near the shed showed me running out at 2:37 a.m., climbing the fence. But before that, for the hours I was in the shed, the footage showed something impossible. The shed door opening and closing by itself, multiple times. Shadows moving around it that didn't match any physical objects. And at one point, a figure standing in the doorway. A woman in old-fashioned clothing just standing there staring at the shed. I don't know what I experienced that night. Don't know if it was real or if exhaustion and fear made me imagine it. But I know what I heard, what I felt, that voice whispering in my ear, and I know I'll never spend a night in a cemetery again. My name's Rachel, and I'm 31, live in Manchester. My grandmother passed away in September, and I'd been visiting her grave every few weeks. She's buried in a small cemetery in Yorkshire, about an hour's drive from where I live. It was late October, around 4 p.m. on a Sunday. The sun was setting earlier now, and the cemetery would close at 5 p.m. I was alone, kneeling by her grave, talking to her like I always did. Telling her about my week, my job, just normal things. I wanted a photo of the grave with the autumn leaves around it, so I took out my phone and snapped a few pictures. Checked them quickly to make sure they looked nice, then put my phone away. As I was leaving, I felt strange. Not scared exactly, just uncomfortable. Like someone was standing very close behind me. I turned around several times, but no one was there. The cemetery was empty except for me. I walked quickly back to my car and drove home. That evening, I was going through the photos I'd taken, planning to send one to my mum. I opened the first photo and my stomach dropped. In the background, behind my grandmother's grave, there was a figure. A woman in dark clothing standing about 10 meters away, partially obscured by a tree. I hadn't seen anyone there when I took the photo. The cemetery had been completely empty. I zoomed in on the figure. The image became pixelated, but I could make out a woman's face. She was staring directly at the camera, directly at me. I checked the second photo, taken 30 seconds later from a slightly different angle. The figure had moved. She was closer now, maybe 5 meters from the grave, still staring at the camera. The third photo, taken another 30 seconds after that. She was right next to my grandmother's headstone. So close that if she'd really been there, I would have seen her in my peripheral vision. But I hadn't seen anyone. I'd been completely alone. My hands were shaking. I called my husband, Pete. Can you come look at something? I think there's something wrong with my phone. He came over and I showed him the photos. His face went pale. Rachel, who is that? I don't know. There was no one there when I took these. That's impossible. You can see her clearly. She's right there. We examined the photos for over an hour. The woman was in all three, getting progressively closer. Her clothing looked old-fashioned, dark and dated. Her face was expressionless, just staring. Pete suggested it might be a glitch, some kind of digital artifact. But the figure was too clear, too detailed. She had shadows, depth. She looked real. I posted the photos in a photography forum online, asking if anyone could explain it. Within an hour, I had dozens of responses. Most people said it was a fake, that I'd edited someone in. A few said it could be a double exposure or a reflection. But one comment made me go cold. Someone had reverse image searched the woman's face and found something. A memorial website for a woman named Dorothy Hughes who died in 2003 and was buried in the same cemetery. I clicked the link. It was her. The exact same woman in my photos. She was buried 3 rows away from my grandmother. I showed Pete. He didn't believe it at first. Someone's messing with you. They found a photo of someone buried there and are trying to freak you out. But I knew that wasn't right. The face in my photos matched Dorothy Hughes perfectly. Same features, same bone structure. And I hadn't known she existed until after I'd taken the photos. I couldn't sleep that night. Kept looking at the photos, at that face staring at the camera. At me. The next morning I drove back to the cemetery. Found Dorothy Hughes's grave. It was exactly where it appeared to be in the photos, 3 rows from my grandmother's. I read her headstone. Dorothy Hughes, 1934 to 2003. Beloved mother and wife, forever watching over us, forever watching. I took photos of her grave to document it, then drove home. That evening I went through those new photos on my phone. In one of them, in the background behind Dorothy's headstone, I could see my grandmother's grave. And standing next to it was the same figure. Dorothy. But this time she wasn't looking at the camera. She was looking at where I'd been standing the day before. I deleted all the photos, every single one. I know that sounds stupid, like destroying evidence, but I couldn't keep them on my phone, couldn't keep seeing that face. Pete thinks I'm being irrational. Says there's a logical explanation, probably something to do with how phone cameras process images. But he can't explain why the figure looks exactly like Dorothy Hughes. Why she appears to move between photos, why she's always staring. I haven't been back to the cemetery since. I know that makes me a terrible granddaughter, but I can't. Every time I think about going, I remember that feeling of someone standing behind me. Someone watching. And I remember those photos. 3 pictures, 30 seconds apart, showing something that shouldn't have been there. I just wish I knew what she was watching for. Or who. If you want more videos like this, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more.